Hi, I'm Richard Howard, and this is my mentor, Erin Sparks. And we're just here for our first mentor-mentee meeting of the program. So I think we're going to jump straight in. And I think the first job I have is to tell you about the lessons I plan to teach during the first several weeks.
Okay.
Now, because we're kind of between units right now, we're coming towards the end of Unit 5, starting Unit 6, and Unit 5 is all about fictional stories. So one of the key things we're working on with students right now is identifying sequences in the story, because it's helping them with their own writing. Also making predictions, putting the events into correct order, and making sure that we're using transition words, identifying that in the text, and then the students will be doing that themselves. And the idea is that they'll be able to then use that in their own writing throughout the literacy in the rest of this module. So yeah, that'll be the first 2 weeks of classes, and then probably going to move into Unit 6, where the students are going to switch into more informational texts, and the culmination of this unit will be a kind of a research report which they'll work on either as a group or individually, which will kind of be their summative piece for that module. So yeah, kind of going from fiction into non-fiction throughout the next couple of weeks.
And where are you getting these your objectives from?
So these objectives come from our school QSIS curriculum, and as the teacher, it's our job to kind of adapt those into our lessons. We'll be using journeys as our core texts for these, and then whilst that's our mentor text, we'll still be finding texts that go around student interest to make sure the students stay engaged with the content and the topic.
Okay.
So I think the next thing to talk about is classroom expectations and routines, and what you expect from me.
Well, I when I walk into a classroom, I think the biggest thing is the classroom environment feels safe, and not just like physically safe, but also so the kids can try to make or they feel comfortable making mistakes in here, and it's safe. So I guess I expect to see a personal relationship with you and the kids first and foremost. Also that the kids have routines down. So that you're transition times, like if you're transitioning from one activity to the other, how do you have some kind of procedure set up for transitions, and I'd like to see they're 7-year-olds, so movement I think is also really important at this age, so that they're learning and they're engaged in a variety of ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for that movement, would you mean you'd like to see them moving around the classroom?
Well, I guess not movement, I guess, just, a transition of getting up and just, like, if you come up from here and you go sit to the carpet, that could be a movement, or even just standing up or just so transitions incorporate some movement, I guess, is important for these
kids.
I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And the next thing kind of to touch on would be the learning standards to be taught in those first few weeks. Now I'm lucky because at QSI we've obviously got our curriculum set out, so we've got some explicit TSWs which are kind of our standards for mastery-based learning. For example, one of the key focuses will be the student will write the events of a story in sequential order. That's something that as a standard is probably one of the most important ones of this unit, because there's various ways we can look at sequencing a story, such as using rising action, block, falling action, first, second, third, different ways. Other TSWs, perhaps students will be selecting descriptive words from text that determine character traits, so it's kind of using the skill of influence there, and then when they then go into writing their own pieces, they're going to be able to use what they've inferred from there. And in terms of kind of their word work, they're going to be working on word endings. So the students will read and identify sounds at the end, such as ed and ing, and some other suffixes as well. So those are kind of the general teaching components especially for the first week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you thinking about ways to differentiate some of this? Like what I like about our standards, it's pretty broad. So writing the events in order, you can easily differentiate for the maybe some of the ELL learners and get some harder text for some of the.
And I was thinking, like, in terms of differentiation, like how, if we're using a mentor text and they then go and summarize the story and put the sequence out, while some students can probably write those out in an actual summary paragraph. Maybe for other kids that need more language support, they can use pictures and maybe use a storyboard.
Or even have sentence frames or moving pieces around. There's another movement piece. If they're moving around the pieces, they put them in order. And
oh yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, maybe have the key words like first, second, third written out for them, so they can just fill in the gaps. Yeah, I like that. Okay. I think the next thing is talking about the Moorland University rubric.
Okay.
So if there's a lot of standards, we might as well start with the first one, which is learner development. So does the candidate use knowledge about students' growth and development? I mean, for me personally, I've known these students for now best part of 6 months, so I've got quite a good understanding of their level and what their interests are.
Yeah.
So I think this is just about making sure that those standards I want to meet is in an area that pushes them, but it's also interesting and engaging for them. I guess is where this first standard's kind of trying to make sure that I'm on the same page with the student.
Okay.
And the second standard, learning differences. Does the candidate create a positive classroom environment, taking them to understand differences in cultures and communities? I guess because we're an international school, this kind of naturally comes into the ethos of our school as it is.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be specifically for.
It's interesting because it says positive classroom climate, and I do feel like sometimes our kids, they don't like making mistakes because maybe at home they're taught mistakes are bad. So I think that's a really a good one to think about, because how do we make mistakes okay?
Yeah, especially in China, there's a lot of right